Hello guys and welcome to Anonymous Pandemonium. This is the second part of the Sylvia Likens story. Before I continue, I want to give everyone watching this a warning. This video contains material that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audiences. On my previous video, we talked about how Sylvia Likens started living with the Banaszewskis and the abuse she endured with them. Today, I will be talking about all the events that happened prior to Sylvia's death, and maybe this will give us a more in-depth view on why the situation got out of hand. The Likens siblings were fearful of notifying either family members or adults at their school of the increasing incidents of abuse and neglect they were enduring, as both were afraid that doing so would only worsen their situation. Jenny, in particular, battled the urge to notify her family because she had been threatened by Gertrude. Jenny was also bullied by the girls in her neighborhood, and she was sometimes taunted and beaten when she hinted at Sylvia's situation. During July and August, Lester and Elizabeth Likens returned to Indianapolis occasionally to visit their daughters whenever travel schedules allowed. The last time Lester and Elizabeth visited their daughters was on her October 5. None of the girls showed visible signs of distress at this time for abusing her parents. This is probably because they were both in the presence of Gertrude and her children. Shortly after Lester and Elizabeth left the Banaszewski home for their last visit, Gertrude turned to Likens and said, "What are you going to do now, Sylvia, now they're gone?" Sometime in September, the girls ran into their older sister, Diana Shoemaker, at a local park. Both Jenny and Sylvia updated on the abuse Diana suffered at the hands of her caregivers, adding that Sylvia was specifically targeted for physical abuse and that most of the time she never said or did anything. Neither sister mentioned the actual address where they lived. At first, Diana thought her sisters must have exaggerated her claims about the extent of the abuse. Several weeks prior to this, Sylvia and Jenny had encountered Diana in the same park, while in the company of 11-year-old Marie Banaszewski, and Sylvia had been given a sandwich to eat when she mentioned to her sister that she was hungry. Likens remained silent about the matter, although Marie revealed this fact to her family in late September. In response, Gertrude accused Likens of engaging in gluttony before she and Paula choked and bludgeoned her. The pair then subjected Likens to a scalding bath in order to cleanse her of sin, with Gertrude grabbing Likens' hair and repeatedly banging her head against the bath to revive her whenever she fainted. Shortly after this incident, the father of a neighborhood boy named Michael John Monroe phoned Arsenal Technical High School to anonymously report that a girl with open sores across her entire body was living at the Banaszewski household. As Likens had not attended school for several days, a school nurse visited East New York Street to investigate these claims. Gertrude claimed to the nurse that Likens had run away from her home the previous week and that she was unaware of her actual whereabouts, adding that Likens was out of control and that her open sores were a result of Likens' refusal to maintain decent personal hygiene. Gertrude further claimed that Likens was a bad influence on both her own children and her sister. The school made no further investigations concerning Likens' welfare. The immediate neighbors of the Banaszewski family were a middle-aged couple named Raymond and Phyllis Vermillion. Both initially viewed Gertrude as an ideal caregiver for the Likens sisters, and both had visited the Banaszewski residence on 2 occasions while the girls had been under Gertrude's care. On both occasions, however, the Vermillions witnessed Paula physically abusing Likens, who on both occasions had a black eye and openly boasting about her mistreatment of the child to them. Upon their second visit to the Banaszewski household, both observed Likens to appear extremely meek and somewhat zombified in nature. Nevertheless, the Vermillions never reported Likens' evident mistreatment to the authorities. Due to the increasing frequency and cruelty of the torture and abuse that Likens was subjected to, she gradually became incontinent. She was denied access to the restroom and forced to pee on herself. On October 6, as punishment for her incontinence, Gertrude threw Likens into her basement and tied her up. Here, Likens was often stripped naked, rarely fed her, and she was frequently deprived of water. Occasionally she was tied to the railing of the basement stairs so that her feet barely touched the ground. In the weeks prior to locking Likens in the family basement, Gertrude had increasingly abused and tormented Likens. She would occasionally falsely claim to the children in her household that either she, herself, or one of them had been receiving direct insults from Likens in the hope this would provoke them into belittling or attacking her. On one occasion, Gertrude held a knife aloft and challenged Likens to fight me back, to which Likens replied she did not know how to fight. In response, Gertrude inflicted a light scour wound to Likens' leg. Physical and mental torment such as this would occasionally pause when the Banaszskis watched their favorite television shows. Neighborhood children were also occasionally charged 5 cents apiece to see the display of Likens' body and to humiliate, beat, scold, burn, and ultimately mutilate her. Throughout Likens' captivity in the basement, Gertrude frequently, with the assistance of her children and neighborhood children, restrained and gagged Likens before placing her in a bathtub filled with scalding water and proceeding to rub salt into her wounds. On one occasion, Gertrude and her 12-year-old son, John Jr., rubbed urine and feces from Gertrude's 1-year-old son's diaper into Likens' mouth. 66. Before giving her a cup half filled with water and stating the water was all she would receive for the remainder of the day. On October 22, John Banaszski Jr. tormented Likens by offering to allow her to eat a bowl of soup with her fingers and then quickly taking away the bowl when Likens, by this stage suffering from extreme malnourishment, attempted to eat the food. Gertrude Banaszski eventually allowed Likens to sleep upstairs, on the condition that she learn not to wet herself. That night, Sylvia whispered to Jenny to secretly give her a glass of water before falling asleep. The following morning, Gertrude discovered that Likens had urinated on herself. As a punishment, Likens was forced to insert an empty glass Coca-Cola bottle into her vagina in the presence of the Banaszski children before Gertrude ordered her into the basement. Shortly thereafter, Gertrude shouted for Likens to return to the kitchen, then ordered her to strip naked before proclaiming to her, "You have branded my daughters, now I am going to brand you." She began carving the words "I'm a prostitute and proud of it" onto Likens' abdomen with a heated needle. When Gertrude was unable to finish the branding, she instructed one of the neighborhood children present, 14-year-old Richard Dean Hobbs, to finish etching the words into Likens' flesh as she took Jenny to a nearby grocery store. In what Hobbs would later insist were short, light etchings, he continued to brand the text into Likens' abdomen as she clenched her teeth and moaned. Both Hobbs and 10-year-old Shirley Banaszski then led Likens into the basement, where each proceeded to use an anchor bolt in an attempt to burn the letter S beneath Likens' left breast, although they applied one section of the loop backwards, and this deep burn scar would resemble the number 3. Gertrude later taunted Likens by claiming she would never be able to marry due to the words carved on her stomach, stating, "Sylvia, what are you going to do now? You can't get married now. What are you going to do?" Weeping, Likens replied, "I guess there's nothing I can do." Later that day, Likens was forced to display the carving to neighborhood children, with Gertrude claiming she had received the inscription at a party. That night, Sylvia confided to her sister, Jenny, "I know you don't want me to die, but I'm going to die. I can tell it." The following day, Gertrude Banaszski woke Likens, then forced her to write a letter as she dictated the contents, which were intended to mislead her parents into believing their daughter had run away from the Banaszski residence. The content of this letter was intended to frame a group of anonymous local boys for extensively abusing and mutilating Likens after she had initially agreed to engage in sexual relations with them before they inflicted the extreme abuse and torture upon her body. After Likens had written this letter, Gertrude finished formulating her plan to have John Jr. and Jenny blindfold Sylvia, then take her to a nearby wooded area known as Jimmy's Forest and leave her there to die. After she had finished writing the letter, Likens was then again tied to the stair railing and offered crackers to eat, although she refused them, saying, "Give it to the dog, I don't want it." In response, Gertrude forced the crackers into Likens' mouth before she and John Banaszski beat her, particularly around the stomach. I understand that this story is so hard to listen to, so I will stop for now and resume the story on my next upload. We will talk more about Sylvia Likens' death and the event that lead up to it. I want to thank you again for watching, and please be safe as always.